Good afternoon, fellow adventurers. It's Brian from the Outdoor Adventurer Series YouTube channel. This week, we're going to be putting together worm harnesses. Last week, we talked about how to tie a few simple knots. Today, we're going to learn one new knot, which is called the Snell knot. And we're going to be putting together one of the ones that I like to put together is called a floating worm harness. And we'll kind of walk you through kind of what it's done. But the basics is the way that I like it is I always put a treble hook on the end as a stinger. I use a standard hook as my primary, and then I have some beads. I have a selection of spinners, my floats, and then my spinner that goes on the line that allows the spinner to swing around. So today what we're going to do is what I usually do is I fish on Lake Erie predominantly for my walleye. So it's nothing to catch a 12, 13 pound walleye. So what I like to use is a 20 pound line. And we'll start off, I like to use something like a Berkley XT, something that has some abrasion resistance because as floating worm harnesses will be coming across debris, they'll be coming across shells, they'll be coming across sticks, they'll be coming across weeds. Anything that you can have that has a good abrasion resistance will ensure that you don't get broken off if you do land a big one. So when I start off, I just like to get probably about 6 foot. So I just go my arm length, and then I'll just get my line and I'll snip it. And then what I'll do is I'll go up and I'll probably get about, I'd say about a foot. Let's say about a foot right there. And then what I'll do is I'm going to take my first hook. You're going to hold it right here. And you're going to put the line through the hook. So the hook is facing forward and the line goes through. Okay, now I'm going to pull that all the way through until about 1 foot left of line. All right, so I have 1 foot left of line behind. Now grab the line and the hook, and I'm going to come a spin through 8 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And now I'm going to hold the line. I'm going to get the end of this line, and I'm going to stick it back through the eyelid of the hook again. I'm going to pull that through. All right, once it comes snug, I'm just going to grab the line and the front line. I'm just going to give it a little pull. And right there is a Snell knot. All right, you have your Snell line. So now what I want to do is I'll grab the rest of the line and I'm going to get my treble hook and I'm going to double the line. All right, so the line's doubled. And I'm going to stick the doubled line through the eyelid of the hook. So it's got the loop on the right side, the hook's hanging. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to fold the line up like this so that the hook's hanging, the line comes around and the loop comes up. When you do that, I'm going to stick the loop through the hole, the loop. See how the loop sticks out? Now all I'm going to do is I'm going to open this loop up and I'm going to pull the hook through it. And then I'm going to pull that tight. Okay. All right. And so now you'll see that it's hooked on the end right here. Now what I'll do is I'll grab my snippers and I'll take the tag end off. All right, and now what we're left with is a hook and a treble hook. All right, Now what I'd like to do is I go to the end and I'm going to get myself 2 beads. Slide 1 bead on. I'm going to slide the second bead on and bring those all the way down. All right. Once I've done that, I'm going to take one of my floats and I'll slide that on. Then I'm going to take 1 bead, slide that on. Then I'm going to slide my second float. Now, if we look, we're beginning to see what's developing on here. So we have the treble hook, we have the standard hook, and then we have a couple beads in the floats. Now the next thing that we're going to do is I'm going to put another bead on. And now I'm going to pick which blade I want to use. And the way that we do this is we get whichever blade. And I think for this one, we're going to go with the shiny blade. All right, take a look at that. Take a look at that. And all you do is you slide the blade onto the holder. And then you slide your line through both holes I'm having problems because my eyes aren't as good as they used to be, and my glasses are really struggling today to find that second hole. Well, I can edit this out. All right, but we'll get there. There, I think I got it. All right. So once it's on, you can see. And then basically what's going to happen is when it hits the water, it will just spin. All right. So now I'm going to put that on top of here. And then I'm going to finish off with 2 beads straight. And then on the last bead, what I'm going to do, and I do this just so it doesn't come loose and apart, is I'm going to take this bead and I'll pull it all the way up to the end. All right, I'll pull it all the way up until it connects to these ones. Then I'm going to lift it up just slightly, as you can see. And then I'm going to take this line and I'm going to stick it through the hole one more time. All right. And then I'm going to pull it up. You don't want to go hard. And you see this, and you're going to slide it back, slide it back, slide it back, and then you're going to pull tight. And what that will do is it will lock everything from sliding back down. See how it won't slide down? It won't slide down now, right? And then the blade can still spin, and the line's there. So now what I like to do is I like to give myself at least 4 feet. So I'm going to look right about there. And then what I'm going to do on the line is very simple. I'm going to make a loop. I'm going to spin it around again, just like there's the main line coming in, there's the loop. So the line comes in, loops around. Then all I'm going to do is put this little loop here at the end through this center loop twice. 1, 2, and then I'm just going to pull it, snug it. All right. Then I'm going to take the tag end, snip it off, and now we have a finished worm harness. So when you go, you put your worm, you get your big worm, you stretch your worm out, you put your worm on, spin it around, you put your worm through again, you stretch your worm out, you put it through one treble hook, you spin it around, you set it through the second treble hook, and then the tail, the worm will extend down through here and the tail will flutter on the back. So as it's going through the water, it's creating this flash, it's creating vibration in the water, and then they come up and they'll strike. And sometimes what they'll do is they'll do short strikes on it. And that's why we have this treble hook, so that if they do come short and just try to tag on the worm, this treble hook usually gets them. I used to fish lines with 2 single hooks, and I was losing fish. As soon as I put a treble hook on the back, I stopped losing them. I was catching all those short strikes. So even if you have maybe some worm harnesses that you already currently like, and you just want to reduce the amount of fish you're losing, you can actually just tie a treble hook onto the end and cut off your single hook. Or you can just cut the line and then do what I just did. Just go ahead and retie everything, but this time with your new hook. That way you have their amount of line. Now, what I'm going to show you next is kind of how you fish these. Now, there's many different ways that you can fish a worm harness. My favorite is a bottom bouncer. And basically the design of the bottom bouncer is this part ties to your line, all right? And then what you do is you open up this and you put your worm harness on. And so as you put the worm harness out into the water, this falls down until you can feel it make contact, right, as you're trolling. And what will happen is this will come across the water, bouncing off the bottom. And because we have floating on here, the floating worm harness will trail in behind like this with the worms floating on the back. And it is an amazing attractant, and walleye can't resist it. So recommendations is, if you're a new person that's out on the water trying to learn these techniques, when you're taking a look at your fish flasher, basically look for lumps or little, mounds at the bottom. More times than not, those are walleye sitting there, and they look like just little structure on the bottom. In early spring, walleye stick close to the bottom. So a floating worm harness is a perfect thing because it is coming across the bottom. So another way to use this floating worm harness is with an inline sinker. Now sometimes what happens is walleye will suspend. And so depending on where they're at in the table, most times walleye like to fish. They'll feed upwards. They'll look at something, they'll chase it up. So you want to work the water column just above them, say a foot, 2 feet above them. And so if they are suspended, what you can do is get inline weights. And basically what they are, they look just like this. They have a swivel snap on the back, they have an eye on the front. You tie it onto your line, you put your worm harness out the back, and then you let the sinker out, and the sinker will sink in the water table depending the size of the line you have, how fast you're going, and your weight. If you buy a inline weight at the store, usually at the back there's a table. It will kind of show you exactly how far out the back of the boat the line needs to be, at what speed, with which weight string, to get it into the area that you want. So say it's 35 feet depth and they're suspended in 20. The graph will tell you exactly how far you need to let your line out so that you can get it into the water table right above them. And what's really nice is I use trolling rods that have the line counter, so it's very easy for me to be able to get that, but that's just another tip. So I hope you enjoyed today's episode. I think walleye fishing is definitely one of the funnest things that I like to do, and you don't always need to have a boat. So on one of the episodes coming up, we'll talk about how you can catch walleyes from shore, different tackle, different lures that you can use to target walleye from shore, especially during the spawn. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, do me a favor. Click on subscribe down below because I'll be putting a video out every Saturday morning. And if you hit the notify bell, when the new one gets up, you'll get notified and you can watch. So again, hope you had a wonderful week, and we'll talk to you next Saturday.